How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Blade Bias, and today we will be talking finally, oh my gosh, it's been almost 2 months at this point, I feel like, about the brand new FlipForge palette beta version, which this is. Before we get into this video, FlipForge did provide these two units for the purpose of both these videos and for me to show them off at Blade Show for the purpose of getting feedback. But as usual, any and all opinions expressed are my own. Just wanted to have that transparency in the beginning so that you can take my opinions with whatever grain of salt that you wish. So this is a video that I've delayed for a little bit because I kind of figured that the palette might be out of beta by now, and then the update video could just be covering everything. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and I think you guys do deserve how these things held up at Blade Show, because as you can see, they're both in one piece, if not a little different from the last time that you saw them. So, these things, to give you the full backstory, FlipForge sent to me. He was interested in getting my opinion, but then it kind of changed into, hey, you're going to Blade Show, right? Could you show off the palette so that I could get feedback from people? So, similar to what I did last year for Remshi with the Kuno, I was the one who was kind of the dedicated show off the palette guy, where people would come up to me and say, hey, can I try the palette? And I would go grab it for them and they would try it. And unfortunately, I don't think it generated too much feedback because I think a lot of people really liked it. There were a few complaints about, like, I don't like this isn't comfortable, or this distribution feels weird, or whatever. But ultimately, I think it was a very successful test for FlipForge in terms of how people liked it. I think unsuccessful in the fact that a maker probably genuinely wants feedback. So when everyone is just like, yeah, it's good, it probably doesn't tell you much when you're trying to figure out how to better improve a product. Anyway, ramble aside, these things survived their whole weekend at Blade Show itself. It wasn't until I took them out for the bite handle rave, which you've probably seen plenty of videos on at this point, where there were hardwood floors, so they said, hey, if you guys could flip plastic balisongs only over these floors, that would be great. Which meant that my collection was probably one of the largest plastic collections there. One of them, not the. So I was lending out a few of my plastic balisongs for people to try. Cycloid HD was flipped basically the whole time with no issue. My Calico was lent out, which unfortunately it came back with a cracked pivot, but that's okay, it still flips. And these two were out also basically the whole time. And people weren't exactly kind to them. I saw a few people attempting like transfer stuff and dropping them all over the place, but that was good, because it durability tests, ultimately, the balisongs. The red one survived with no incident, and still to this day it remains in great condition, if not a little poorly tuned, because I haven't taken the time to tighten it. Whereas my custom one, this Dex variation as I like to call it, because it's the same colors as my boy Dex over here, unfortunately broke right here across the entire handle. So the entire pivot area was basically coming apart. You could still flip it because it was attached on the other side of the handle, but it didn't sound very good and it didn't feel very sturdy. So thankfully, with the premium version of the palette beta, FlipForge included an extra handle. So I was able to replace it. Unfortunately, it was the handle without the EE that broke. So now I have like two very obnoxious EEs, but it's also kind of funny because then it's just EE, it's just the E balisong. So you win some, you lose some, I guess. And I'm honestly not really sure what to make of that, because it kind of just reiterates that FlipForge has had durability issues in the past. I think it's a combination of both the way that he's trying to get his weight in there, combined with the fact of the material that he's using to 3D print these things. It just yet again proves that these things aren't going to hold up to concrete beating or even hardwood beating. But flipping them over carpet, as I have, I've had no issue. So just be aware of that if you go to purchase one. This thing isn't going to be your new daily beater for sure. Plastic balisongs in general shouldn't be your daily beater unless it's something like a Cycloid HD or a Squiddy B, but again, we'll get to that in future videos. So, that was their Blade Show. Trip. I'm honestly more surprised that this one didn't break at all. But what do I think of their flipping? I think, quite simply, the FlipForge beta, the palette beta, sorry, is my favorite plastic balisong, hands down. I think this finally has reached a point where I am entirely happy just flipping a palette. Most of the other plastic balisongs I've ever tried, while I enjoyed them and while they were very, very good, couldn't replace metal balisongs for me. Metal balisongs always provided something that I could come back to and enjoy, whether it was the weight or the solid nature of them or the weight distribution or whatever. And usually it's the weight distribution. The one thing that I could say replaced plastic or could have replaced metal for me was the original Tay flipper, but it's just too light. Eventually I will get kind of annoyed of how light it is and I'll want to flip to something else. These coming in at just about 3 ounces, and with the weight distribution that they have with the metal plates on the inside of the handles and the blade, I think successfully not replicate a metal experience, but come close enough to providing one where I would say if I was going on a trip for a month, I could bring this, only this, and be happy. Which I can't say about basically any other plastic balisong at this point. Maybe the Chroma V2, maybe, because the Chroma V2 I find a lot of similarities with, the 2.5, the Chroma V2.5, I find a lot of similarities between the distribution of this and the distribution of this, but ultimately the palette just feels a little bit more refined. And I have really, really enjoyed flipping it. It's the Dex one specifically, which is the Crescent Blade. It is very neutral. It carries momentum exceedingly well, fans well, choker fans well, rollovers well, carries momentum well, like I said. It is just all around a great flipper. It's light enough that I can do fun aerial tricks with it, but it's heavy enough that it doesn't lose momentum from its lack of metal anywhere. It genuinely does feel closer to the metal distribution that you see in metal balisongs, or the weight distribution that you see in metal balisongs, without completely abandoning its roots as a plastic balisong. Like, this is still a plastic balisong at the end of the day, and you will feel that when you flip it, but it comes ever so closer to feeling a little bit more like a metal balisong without trying to emulate a metal balisong, in my opinion. This red one, also very fun to flip. This Tonto blade, curved Tonto blade, whatever you want to call it, means that it is a little bit more handle biased. Performance in rollovers goes up while performance in fanning goes down, just by a little bit. It's enough that I can notice it, but it's not enough that I think that other people who are newer to the hobby would be able to pin down immediately. I think it was something that some people noticed at Blade Show though, so take that for what you will. But it flips incredibly well. I really, really like it. It feels very distributed. I don't really feel any crazy hot spots. It's not lacking in tip weight. It's not lacking in end weight. I think it just flips honestly extraordinarily well. The grip is great. The design is grippy in all the right places. You can see on the side of the channel, there's this faux speed channel. The jimping is kind of similar to it's like a reverse of the Mako V5 jimping, or like the wing jimping or something like that. But digs into your fingers just enough, as plastic usually does, to be useful, and it just flips very, very well. You have the grip, you have the distribution, you have the balance, which I would say is still slightly handle biased, if not basically like it's on the handle bias side of neutral. Let's say that. So it's just ever so slightly beyond neutral into handle bias, at least to my hand. But it is really, really excellent, especially for the price that it is at. I believe these retail for $55 if you want the standard one, which I think this is the standard one. And then if you want to upgrade for $85 to a premium one, you don't get any benefits in flipping or weight like you did with the original Edit and Edit Lite. What you get is the customization. So with the non-premium, with the standard palette, you get these 2 channels that you can customize on each side, or 2 sides of the channels. But with the premium one, you not only get the kind of fake sandwich on the inside, but you also get these extended holes with the gills on the inside that you can customize. And I think you can put letters down here. I'm not actually sure about that. But essentially, you're paying more for the customization aspect rather than the flipping, which I think is really cool, because it means that you can get a balisong that performs just as well as this for a little bit cheaper as long as you're willing to give up that customization, which is great. And for $55, I think this is easily my pick for plastic balisong. The one that I would recommend to people. I would put it on my recommendation document, but I'm currently just waiting for him to finally release them, seeing what changes he'll make, etc. I saw I posted on his story that they might lose the little plate that goes around the pivots that make it look like a little face. This is a little charm he gave in the pre-production beta units or whatever. The premium beta units, I guess I should say. But as with the Edit Lite, this thing is by far my favorite plastic balisong. I really enjoy it. There are a few improvements that could be made that people have suggested that I think FlipForge will take into account, most notably with durability. But the flipping aspect of it is just phenomenal. So I'm a huge fan. The palette's great. I really like it. Unfortunately, I didn't try the third blade that he sent me out just because taking this thing apart was an absolute nightmare. One of these screws was like Loctited, but it wasn't Loctite. It was like stuck in there, and it took me forever to get out on stream. You can look up the stream. It's the Balisong maintenance stream. It took me forever, and it annoyed me so much. Thankfully, the other handle didn't do that to me, so I think it was just a fluke. But maybe I should try and take this thing in for service to see if it was just a fluke or if it's actually representative of the experience of taking this thing apart. But yeah, as far as tolerances go, I think that might be something that people ask. It feels good. It feels solid in the hands, but there is still plastic tap and rattle. I think you can avoid that if you tune it correctly, but they do lose tune very, very fast. I remember at Blade Show, since I had flipped this one more before Blade Show, this one felt overall less solid and this one felt more solid. Now that's different because I just replaced the handle and tuned this one up. So this one feels way less solid, and kind of the feel of the tune is dependent on how tight the screws are. But it's a plastic balisong. If you're getting it for the tuning of it, you're getting it for the wrong reasons. So once again, I have yapped long enough about the palette. Thank you to FlipForge for sending these things out, both for this review and for letting me show them off at Blade Show. It was very fun to have people come up and want to try them. Even though it's not my project or not my product whatsoever, it was still kind of fun to have that experience of like showing people and getting their feedback and everything. So huge thank you to FlipForge. Huge thank you to you if you came up and you tried the palette. Let FlipForge know what you thought if you remember. This is kind of a late video, but I'll see you guys in the next one. Later.